The boardroom applause was a thunderous, self-congratulatory wave. On the massive screen behind me, the double helix animation spiraled triumphantly around our new logo, Euphorica Genetics, designing tomorrow's humanity today. I, Dr. Alana Thorne, CEO and co-founder, had just announced the successful, legal in 3 forward-thinking countries, launch of our flagship service, Euphorica Prime. For a mere $1.2 million, prospective parents could select from a curated genomic catalog, enhancing for intelligence, athletic predisposition, disease immunity, even aesthetic traits like eye color and height predisposition. We weren't playing God, we insisted. We were curating natural potential. The loudest applause came from my right. My husband, Marcus, handsome and radiating proud ownership, squeezed my shoulder. He was the face, the charismatic fundraiser. I was the brains, the visionary who'd cracked the polygenic risk score algorithms to make it not just possible, but commercially viable. Our own path to parenthood had been the ultimate proof of concept. After 3 miscarriages that shattered me, we'd used an early, secret iteration of Euphorica on ourselves. We'd selected for viability, for health, for resilience. Our daughter, Lyra, now 3, was sleeping in her nursery in our penthouse upstairs. She was the living, breathing, perfect embodiment of our science. She was also, legally and ethically, our greatest secret. That night, after the last champagne flute was cleared, Marcus and I stood in Lyra's room, watching her sleep. Her chestnut curls, my genetic contribution selected, fanned out on the pillow. Her long lashes, a dominant trait from Marcus's sequenced profile, brushed her cheeks. "She's our masterpiece, Alana," Marcus whispered, his arm around me. "She's our daughter," I corrected, though my heart swelled with the same proprietary pride. A week later, the first crack appeared. It was a Saturday. Lyra was building a complex magnet tile castle, her concentration profound for a 3-year-old. I was reviewing gene editing patent applications on my tablet. "Mama," she said, not looking up from her structure. "Yes, my love?" "Who is Celia?" The name meant nothing. A character from a show? A friend at her elite preschool? "I don't know a Celia, sweetheart. Is she a new friend?" She shook her head, finally looking at me with those clear, too knowing gray eyes, a harmonious blend of our selected alleles. "No, Daddy talks to her in his office. He says her name. He says he loves her voice." A cold drip of unease trickled down my spine. Marcus's home office was soundproofed. How could she hear? "When does Daddy talk to her, Lyra?" "At night, when you work late. He goes in his room and talks to the shiny rectangle." She mimed holding a phone. Her vocabulary, another selected-for trait, was unnervingly precise. I pushed down the sudden sharp jealousy. It was probably a client, a demanding investor. Marcus was charming. He used endearments loosely. I buried myself in work, but the seed of doubt was planted. The second crack was biological. As part of our own ongoing study, we sequenced Lyra's genome annually, tracking the expression of her curated traits. The latest results, which I ran myself late one night in my private lab, showed an anomaly. A cluster of neurodevelopmental markers associated with advanced linguistic processing and pattern recognition were expressing at levels far beyond the range predicted by our combined profiles. It was as if an unknown variable had been introduced, a catalyst boosting the selected traits into a new dimension. Science abhors an unknown variable. I began a quiet audit. I reran our original parental sequences. I examined the logs of the incubation and implantation process, which had been handled by my most trusted colleague, Dr. Evan Finch. Everything was clean, pristine, by the book. But the anomaly persisted, and Lyra began to say other things. She recounted details from conversations Marcus and I had had in private, her recall photographic. She started humming a specific obscure jazz melody I'd never heard before. When I asked her where she learned it, she said, "Daddy's song. He plays it for Celia." Confrontation was not my style. Evidence was. I installed a benign-looking air quality monitor in Marcus's home office. It had audio feedback capability. What I heard over the next week broke the world I'd built. Marcus's voice, soft, intimate, laughing. "You're my perfect girl, Celia, my secret masterpiece." The rustle of sheets, a woman's laughter, low and melodic. Then the conversation that turned my bones to ice. "She suspects nothing," Marcus said. "She's too obsessed with her data." "Lyra's doing fine," replied the woman's voice. "Celia. Better than fine. The latest expressions are off the charts. Our cocktail worked beautifully." Our cocktail. The Thorne intellect, the Vance artistic genes, and my little dash of visionary spice. She's the ultimate hybrid, and she's all ours. Once the board sees her potential, they'll push Alana out entirely. We'll control Euphorica, a family business. My blood turned to slush. Vance. I knew that name. Dr. Celia Vance, a brilliant rogue epigeneticist whose controversial work on non-heritable trait amplification had been laughed out of the journals. I'd met her once at a conference. She was stunning, dangerous, and openly criticized my approach as pedestrian. They had used me, my company, my research, my DNA. They had spliced it with Celia's. Lyra was not just mine and Marcus's child. She was a triad, a genetically engineered triumvirate, and I was the one being engineered out. The final blow came the next morning. Lyra had been quiet, watching me with an eerie, assessing gaze. I was making her breakfast, my hands shaking. She toddled over to my lab coat and looked up at me. Then she spoke. Not in her usual melodic tone, but in a perfect, haunting mimicry of Celia Vance's low, confident contralto, a voice she had only ever heard through a door and a speaker. "Alana," she said, the name a chilling parody of adult condescension. "You look tired. Marcus was right. You don't know when to let go." I dropped the ceramic bowl. It shattered on the marble, yogurt and berries exploding like a crime scene. Lyra didn't flinch. She just smiled, a smile that held none of a child's innocence, but all of Celia's calculated triumph. Her first perfectly mimicked sentence was not "mama" or "dada." It was a weaponized truth in the other woman's voice. My perfect child, my company, my husband, none of them were mine. They were all part of a design I had funded, built, and housed in my own body. And as I looked into my daughter's brilliantly engineered alien eyes, I knew the war for what was mine, for what was me, had just begun. But I was no longer just a scientist or a betrayed wife. I was the original blueprint, and I knew how to rewrite the code.